Hello, my name is Dr. Andrea Whelan. Welcome to the Confident Performer Series. This will be an introduction to what the Confident Performer Series entails. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself in a bit, but how about we start with a deep breath and just get settled into the here and now of being in this room and having this time together. So I'd like you to start with sitting tall, sitting well. Feel as if somebody's pulling a tissue out of the top of your head. And your feet can be grounded. And if you'd like to, you can move up to the front third of your seat if you happen to be sitting. Otherwise, just standing taller, chest up, chin level. And this is the fastest way to access your physiology, is just changing your body language and then accessing your breath intentionally. So let's start with a deep inhale through the nose and a longer exhale than the inhale. Let's do one more like that, and you can choose to exhale out your nose or your mouth. Either one is fine. So inhale, exhale. So just notice if you feel just a little bit different from when you started. Great little exercise. Nobody needs to know that you're doing it. Just change your body language and change your breath. So let's get into it. So I am delighted that you are here. Thank you for carving out some time for yourself to learn a little bit more about this series called The Confident Performer. I'm going to tell you a bit about the program. I'm going to tell you a little bit about who I am and why I'm here. And finally, we'll talk about what's possible for your program, for your athletic department, or your sport organization. So what is the Confident Performer Series? Basically, there's a number of ways to access it. We can do in-person experiences, 2 full days. We can do 3 half days. We can do a webinar series. We'll have ongoing coaching within that Confident Performer Series. Individual coaching is also available. And then it comes with this guidebook that you see there on the screen. And so that is 65 pages, maybe more as I continue to add to it. That is fillable as a PDF, and it can be used really throughout your life. So the whole idea is this is a blueprint for consistent and confident performances regardless of the environment. So some of the possibilities could be that you add the Confident Performer Series to your summer camps. You might offer it to rising first-year collegiate student athletes. It's called Making the Leap. And jumping from high school athletics to collegiate athletics is quite the transition. So the Confident Performer Series allows that transition to be smoother than what it might be without those skills. Also, the Confident Performer Series can be for your athletic department. You can choose to involve your parents, but certainly getting athletes and coaches on the same page is ideal. I also think it's ideal to have parents involved, as they are more involved than they've ever been in any time in our sporting history. And so having them be on the same page in the right way, understanding their role and responsibility, can be very beneficial for everyone. So it starts with knowing your identities and knowing the ultimate game that you are playing. Modern science and ancient wisdom agree that the game of self-mastery is the ultimate game. Perhaps you've heard of Joseph Campbell. He talks about following your bliss. Others talk about striving for excellence. or living your best life. Modern science calls it flourishing. Ancient wisdom calls it eudaimonia, which means good soul. So if we understand that's the ultimate game that we're playing, no matter the competitive arena, then we have a chance to show up as the best version of ourselves. So let's keep going. So what is self-mastery? It's basically confidence. It's intense trust in yourself. Confidence, the root of confidence, is a Latin root, which is confidere. I love how that sounds, confidere. And that is basically building intense trust in yourself, but also the systems with which you're involved. And we are all part of all sorts of systems, whether it be school, whether it be community, whether it be your athletic team, whether it be at work, and really the planet. That is a type of system, the universe, the multiverse. So on and on we go. We are never separate from any kind of system. So basically, confidence is not arrogant. It is really about knowing inside yourself, without anybody else having to pat you on the back, your capabilities, what you have in terms of your array of competencies. And it's not necessarily about being fearless, but it may mean that you fear less, that you have little to no doubt, or you can use that fear as energy to step forward in your best self. Trust really is the secret sauce to relationships and to having performances arise out of solid confidence and consistency. We know that trust takes time to build. It can break in seconds, and it takes a concerted effort typically to repair. So let me tell you about the Confident Performer Series adventure. And I like to think of it as an adventure instead of a journey. So we just talked about Confidere, where I'm going to introduce you to why I've taken a systems approach. I'm going to give you a little bit more about my background. I'm going to talk about the pact. We're going to talk about the model. And we're going to talk about the common goal of a winning system. Now, more specifically, what are some of the mile markers that we're going to get into? The confident performer model. Again, about systems, what that common goal is, what the commitment is, and what are some of the roles and responsibilities. Look, you are a human and you are complex. So understanding the multiple sources of your identities helps you better understand who you are and who you want to be. And that goes into the choice identities. There's 4 primary domains in your life, and we will talk about who do you want to be as your future self, and can you close the gap from where you are today to who you want to be in the future. We will align goals and values and your targeted behaviors so they all make sense in terms of reaching and expressing that better to best version of yourself. We'll talk about what your superpowers are, what your kryptonite is, and what they are to trigger where you're going to be at your best, or maybe you're not going to be at your best self. So we need to know what those are. We're going to develop algorithms to help you get into that flow state without having to think too much about it. And finally, we'll get to know your saboteurs, what we call protectors in the internal family systems language. And we're going to work with them so they don't work against you. Where we would be heading is we're understanding the 6 fundamentals of a healthy performer so you can be a whole person in the many arenas in which you find yourself. We'll talk about 4 types of actual performers and how we can help you increase your consistency and confidence through some of the mental skills. I call them the core 4, and then I've added a special one that's just as important, so you can consistently show up as the best version of yourself. We'll talk about deliberate practice and how to get the most out of your practice and training sessions. And then ultimately, this is a lot of information. We go deep. And so I have put together some performance matrices so you can come up with your customized, personalized plan that most resonates with you so you can close that gap between where you are and where you want to be in terms of the confident, consistent performer. Finally, we'll do some reflection, which is where learning takes place. And we will talk about this being an upward spiral so you can have this blueprint for life and you can use it as your guidebook, your life book. So as you evolve, the system that you create evolves. So what about systems? Why a systems approach? Let's understand the power of systems and why they matter. Systems are dynamic, they are complex, and they're made up of interrelated and interdependent parts. We have all heard the expression that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. It best represents what a system is. And we talked a little bit earlier about all the types of systems that we interact with, and we play many different roles in the different types of systems. And what I have found over the years of experience being involved in systems, I've had a company called Winning Systems for 3 decades, is that when that system is optimized like a well-oiled machine with less friction in any parts of the system, then wild dreams and goals can be achieved that maybe far exceeded the expectations of what people thought would be possible. Rudyard Kipling really says it best in his book, The Jungle Book, which he wrote, I think, in the 1890s. For the strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack. I just love that quote. Can you think about your team and how your team impacts you and how you impact your team? It's pretty powerful if we break it down. So let's talk about what I have noticed over the many teams in which I've been involved, the many athletic departments, the many organizations, is that when things aren't going well, that triggers this dissatisfaction cycle. And it can start with athletes complaining that they think their coach doesn't like them or hates them, as I hear often from the athletes who come to see me. They complain that their coaches are clueless or that they play favorites or they don't even give them a chance. So that kicks off some dissatisfaction with, of course, coaches, because the coaches feel it when the athletes aren't having a good time or they're not on the same page with their athletes. Parent or coaches might complain that parents are a nightmare, and that creates conflict and tension. They feel like parents sometimes undo their hard work that they've been putting into these athletes just by a few statements when the parents may not be on the same page as the coach. Sometimes coaches complain that parents baby their children and they don't get what being an athlete and having that level of commitment is all about. So then what happens? Parents can complain that coaches are tyrants, or they're clueless, or they don't communicate, or they play the mind games and they play favorites. And so, really, these are common challenges when there's a lack of understanding or mutual agreement on what the roles are and what the responsibilities are. And look, either ineffective communication can take place where the sender is pretty sure they've sent the information, and whether the receiver understood it in the way that was intended or it wasn't sent at all. That's where some of the conflict can really arise. So look, we can create a different story. Let's change the narrative. Let's talk about kicking off a fun and rewarding cycle where everyone really does feel like a winner. Look, I'm not interested in giving trophies to everyone and giving rewards all the time. I don't think that is often very motivating, but I am big on winning in terms of winning in the right ways. And part of that is getting everybody on the same page. So when parents, athletes, and coaches are on the same page, they mostly enjoy the whole experience more. They're more willing to grow and learn when they're in a positive environment where they feel like they can thrive. They're working with and not against each other. And so the ultimate common goal for a winning system is having positive experiences for all. When winning systems are created and everybody gets on the same page, this results in winning seasons, and everybody loves to win. People want to get behind a winning team and be a part of a winning team. And this is where championships can be won. Everybody has a lot more fun when winning is taking place. So let's take a look at what my philosophy is on the Parents, Athletes, Coach. You see that as a pack, and that is a play, of course, on word like a wolf pack. So it's focusing on the repeatable process of winning a series of moments. And clearly, I'm going to be taking you all through those steps so you know what those steps are so you can feel in control of them. And when you master these controllables, this is basically mastering yourself in the high pressure moments. So I'd like to tell you a story about a golfer who worked with a sports psychologist, because what the golfer found was, obviously he was good enough to be pro, but he wasn't really winning the purses and wasn't winning the big tournaments because it would kind of fall apart at the end. So Lenny Basham is a two-time Olympian, and I would call him more of a mental coach than a psychologist. He was more of a mental coach, but a two-time Olympian. He was a shooter, so he understood being under pressure. His first Olympics, he won silver, and he was pretty close to winning gold. So he thought he could really improve his process and went on to win gold the next time. So this golfer sought him out for some help on his mental game. So he finds himself in a big purse tournament, this golfer who had spent quite a bit of time with Lenny Basham, focusing on developing the process for putting himself in a position for the next best shot. So he went each shot by shot, he went through a whole process and had no focus on results, did not keep track of his score, and only focused on what his process was for the next shot. Very disciplined to be able to do that and not keep track of your score. He just let his caddy keep score. So he found himself at the end of the tournament on the 18th hole with a 3-foot putt to make. So what happened? He lined up, he went through his process, and boom, makes the putt. amazing. The crowd goes bananas. He turns and shakes the hand of his partner, still not knowing what the score was or where he fell in terms of the lineup of how everybody else was doing. His wife came running out to the green and gives him a big hug. And he looks up and he says, "Did I win?" Isn't that incredible? What a story about being so locked in, so committed to the process, and him being able to win the moment through focusing on the process. Could you imagine if he knew what the score was and he had a 3-foot putt and he knew this could be a $1 million putt? Maybe tension would arise. Maybe he wouldn't have performed so well. So my goal for you would be to help you understand that committing to the process and being in control helps you develop that consistent confidence that you're looking for. So I'm a big believer in the learning and growth as the wins. So when you're learning and growing, you are winning. And so I've worked with a number of athletes and coaches who talk about failing and fearing failure. And I'm saying there's no such thing as failure except a failure to learn. So as long as you're learning and growing, you are thriving and improving. So through this process of self-mastery, you will learn to bounce back even stronger. So I do talk about it's not a matter of if you're going to make a mistake, it's a matter of when. And we've got to develop plans so you can bounce back more quickly. I like to call it bounce forward because you've grown and learned and now you're even better at the process. So the pack makes a pact. All plays on words. We know that PACT stands for parents, athletes, coaches, and the team around the team. And the team around the team is the sports psychologist, the nutritionist, the strength and conditioning coach, the athletic trainer, the administration, and maybe even academic support. So we all play a role in the winning system, and we make a promise to each other that we're going to commit to our common goal of having positive sporting experiences. So taking that Rudyard Kipling quote and saying the strength of the performer is the pact, and the strength of the pact is the performer. So if we were doing a workshop together, we would go into our books and talk about what your role is. I have acronyms, STEP, LEO, SEED, and GROWS for each of the 4 roles of the pact. And we talk about committing to and what is needed from you to make that pact work. So now it's time to tell you a little bit about my background and my why. And this picture was taken back when dinosaurs roamed the earth. And we were in Australia training for the 1994 World Cup, where we jumped from 11th to 3rd in the world. And I'm a goalie, and I was doing the same sprints and training that my field athletes or field teammates were doing. All right, here we go. So I am a performance psychologist. I'm the founder of Winning Systems Psychology, and I had a lifelong dream of being an Olympian. When I was 6 years old, I was watching Nadia Comaneci in the 1976 Olympics, where she was scoring tens, and it was the first time the world had seen any gymnast score tens, and she had a few of them. She inspired a whole cadre of Olympians based on her performance. And so it was a lifelong dream, and it was quite the journey. 21 years of pursuing that lifelong dream. When I was a kid, our family played tennis together, and we were also a very psychologically minded family. My father was a psychiatrist. My mother was studying to get her master's in counseling psychology when I was a kid. And we played tennis, as I said. And one day I let my anger get the best of me, and I smashed my racket out of anger and frustration after a mistake, broke my racket, and had to earn some dollars to buy my new racket. But along the way, my mom gave me the inner game of tennis, and that was the game changer. So I started reading more about mental toughness, and it actually set my whole trajectory of my career on wanting to learn more and more about sports psychology and performance, knowing that I had this big dream of being an Olympian. So like I said, it was not an easy path. I got cut not once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think it was around time 5 or 6 that my parents and my family started to say, hey, don't you want to pursue your PhD? Wouldn't it be time to move on? It doesn't seem to be working out. But I had a deep down knowingness. I had confidere. I had intense trust that I really could do it, even though there was no evidence of being able to do it and make that team. I knew deep down inside that I could be an Olympian, and I was right there. I just needed to continue to improve. So it took 21 years from age 6 to 27 before I finally got to play in the 1996 Olympics in my hometown of Atlanta. It was the mental skills that helped keep me there. So that's what I want to share with others, is that persistence and mental skills along the way can help you accelerate where you want to be in the future. I played at Iowa, University of Iowa, was a 2-time All-American there, was a Hall of Fame athlete. I've been a Division I coach. I coached at Maryland. We won the national championship there. Coached at Iowa. We were Big Ten champs and went to the Final Four. And I coached at Dartmouth, and we were ECAC champions. So I understand the role of being a coach and what it means to try to get the best out of athletes. I know what it means to be an athlete, both at the high school, collegiate, and the Olympic level, and how to help athletes be the best versions of themselves. I've also been in administration. I was at IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida, where I was head of mental conditioning. We worked with 1,100 full-time student athletes across 8 sports. We also had mental conditioning coaches who worked with special ops soldiers, which is something that I also did for IMG Academy. At Penn, I was director of sports performance, where I saw all the sports performance services for our over 1,000 athletes and 33 teams. And most recently, I was director of wellness at Sensei, which is a luxury retreat in Rancho Mirage, California, where we also delivered integrated team-based services for the guests at Sensei. So finally, I want to let you know all of this experience rolls into helping others not suffer in the ways that I suffered through my paths of achieving high goals and trying to perform at my highest ability. So using mental skills helps you persist in the face of hardship. You will face adversity along the way. I want to help you make that process a bit smoother and help you understand that adversity is necessary as part of becoming your best self. We all benefit when everyone in the system elevates their mental games. And ultimately, my goal is to have you be a force for good for the sustainability of what our planet needs as well as our common humanity needs. So let's talk a bit about how most people train, that they become too focused on results and they think that if they perform poorly, then maybe they're a bad person. I used to suffer from this as well. So it really is an upside down triangle where the human, the amount of training that goes into being a human and understanding your identities, understanding who you are, what's important to you, the sources of your identities, there's very little time spent there. And so it's kind of wobbly, right? There's no foundation, there's no surface. So then the time spent on becoming a healthy performer is there's a bit there, but then in terms of confidence, everything is dumped in to being a confident performer. And again, that means that there's too much of an emphasis on getting the results and not enough emphasis on building that solid foundation. So let's flip this model on its head and talk about how confidence rises from building a really solid, sustainable foundation. And that starts with being a human first. And that's why we spend quite a bit of time on it in the Confident Performer series, is knowing who you are, what your virtues and values are, what your habits and targeted behaviors are, knowing what your big goals are. Those can all get in alignment so you can move in the direction of who you want to be, which is your choice identities. And then once you have that solid and clear, then of course we need the health to be able to perform at our highest levels. And I talk about 6 fundamentals of the healthy performer. And then we put the icing on the cake, so to speak, which is using our mental skills and creating performance routines before performing, during performing, and after performing. So then it all comes together in one solid plan that you can consistently execute on. So I mentioned 4 types of performers, and these you will not find in a book. This is something that I just noticed along the way, is that there's the roller coaster rider who seems as if they have high confidence, but they're highly inconsistent. You don't know who's going to show up that day. They're up one day, down another, kind of halfway there. It's because they have no routines to keep them at their highest level. Next one let's look at is the slippery sloper, where they're low confidence as well as low consistency. So they may start off really, really strong, and then down the hill they go as soon as they make one mistake. So they really sort of spiral downwards. And so again, they don't have the mental skills to help catch them after a mistake to keep them at a higher level. Now, the flatliner is highly consistent, but low confidence. That to me is the saddest situation. That's usually an environment that's highly blaming, highly shaming, high levels of complaints. And so those athletes have quite a bit of skill and competency and potential, but they never really get off the ground. They're always performing at a low level. And finally, the A gamer is the best that you can be. High confidence, high consistency, and it's because they have a plan. Let's take a look at anti-fragile confidence. This is a concept that I learned about through the Heroic Corporation that has a coaching program. I'm a certified Heroic coach, and I really resonate with this concept of being anti-fragile. So you can imagine if you go to a post office and you have 3 different boxes labeled differently from being fragile to resilient to anti-fragile. And so how that might go is those receiving my boxes might think fragile, handle with care, don't do too much, don't be too hard on me, take good care of me because I can't really take it. That's sort of the fragile, handle with care. Resilient might be, hey, I can be tossed around, dropped, maybe bumped, but not too much. I'm resilient. I can come back, but I don't really want to get too dented up. I can take it, but not too rough, please. Where anti-fragile is the opposite of fragile. It is, I can handle it. I can take a bump. I can take a fall. I can take a drop. And actually, I get stronger the more I'm bumped around. Now, I'm not talking about abusive environments, but I'm talking about there's a level of toughness there. There's a level of anti-fragile confidence where you can take it, you can take some criticism, you can take feedback, and you become stronger because of it. So a couple of the activities that are in the workbook that you would be exposed to is one is a virtues, values compass, which was inspired by the work of Heroic. And we walk you through the ancient wisdom, 4 cardinal virtues, which are the essence, the very essential virtues that make for that flourishing life. We also talk about modern science and the top 5 virtues that were discovered through science, through the Positive Positive Psychology Center at the University of Pennsylvania, inspired by the work of Martin Seligman, considered the father of positive psychology. And those are 5 virtues for flourishing. So you may or may not use any of those or resonate with them, but we would talk about your virtues and create a compass and knowing what your North Star is. I also take you through an activity on the superpowers and the kryptonite. And this is maybe where you might want to pause and think through, what do you do when you're at your very best? Is it that you exercise in the morning? Is that you get a great night's sleep? Is that your nutrition is dialed in? Is that you have kind of a morning routine and a bedtime routine where you feel like you can lock in? So there's certain activities that you do when you're flourishing, when you're at your best. What's the number one thing that you do? And are you able to make a commitment to yourself to do that every day? And then let's look at kryptonite. What makes you weak? What detracts you? What hinders or hurts you or gets in the way? Some of the activities that we engage in as humans are not always serving our highest and best self. So what do you do when you're not at your best? I encourage you to pause the video here and maybe write those down. And then perhaps you post them somewhere as a reminder or as a level of commitment that you're going to aim to do them every day and see what a difference that it makes for you. Another one of the activities that we would be doing is called Step Up to a Better Feeling. And when you're feeling pretty lousy, it is hard to make the leap from feeling lousy to joyful. So I have a process where you name the emotion, and sometimes naming the emotion alone brings it to your conscious, mindful self. That naming it and claiming it can be useful in and of itself, and there's no need to judge the emotions. We have a range of emotions to serve us as part of being human. They inform us, it's data. So we can move step by step. Say, for example, we started at worry. Maybe there's one action step that you can take that's small and doable that makes you feel a little bit better. And maybe you're feeling more doubt. And perhaps you stay with doubt, sense that you feel that, And maybe there's an actionable step that you can do to step up to the next better feeling. Hopefully that process makes sense to you, and that you can slow things down, name and claim your feelings, and maybe take a small targeted what's next action step to put you in the right direction. So let's talk a little bit about the process. We would be going step by step to help you understand the skills, the tools, the processes that help you become that confident performer that you've been wanting to become. And it's not just the one time, it's repeatedly over time that you want to have your confidence available to you, regardless of the situation. So there are going to be activities to start doing and to stop doing, and ultimately we want to be very deliberate so it then becomes part of who you are and your process. So we're going to put a performance matrix together. We'll talk about the preparation phase, the pre-performance phase, the during performance phase, and the post-performance phase. So there are targeted actions and behaviors that line up with your virtues and line up with that ultimate identity of who you want to be in energy, in your role, in your work, and in your love. And the matrices help you be consistent in that process. So we're going to help you develop that anti-fragile confidence. We're going to look at attitude and concentration and effort so that you feel prepared and ready to perform that day. I'll teach you skills on how to maintain your focus and how to recover from your mistakes quickly. And then ultimately, we need to recover and recharge to have our batteries ready to go for next day performance. When we glean the learning and the growing, now we have a chance to continue to raise our levels of performance. So we will help you with building those performance routines to sustain and build that consistent confidence. So my ultimate objectives for you in the Confidence Performer series is that you sustain your level of confidence and trust in yourself by getting to know who you are as a human, as a whole person, as a healthy performer, and then a confident performer. We're going to really show you what is possible. We've talked about aligning your goals, your virtues, your habits in those primary identities. We will talk about how to execute on those 6 fundamentals and what really matters to you. And ultimately, you will be able to deploy that performance blueprint to consistently play with the confidence and freedom and poise under a great deal of intense pressure. Isn't that what we all want to be able to do? So I talked briefly in the beginning about the different availability of programs. We talked about the Making the Leap for rising rookies. We talked about the Accelerator, which is 3 3-hour sessions across 3 days in a row, or we could do an all-in program with 2 full days and then some follow-up coaching as well. So in all of these series, all of the topics will be covered. So you'll get the online course, the guidebook. In the future, there is a book. I'm in the editing stages now of that. I'm developing the online workshops. Those are available now. The online course to complement it. There's follow-on group coaching, as I've discussed, and certainly individual support is available as well. So hopefully you gained something out of today. You walked away with at least 1 or 2 skills that you can put into immediate action. That breath work, accessing your physiology through your body language as well as your breath, where you can flip the switch immediately in any situation where you're facing tension or conflict or challenge, using your breath and regrounding yourself can help you access that better to best version of yourself. So you can certainly go online to drandreawhelan.com. Go ahead and sign up for the webinar waiting list. There's no obligation there. It just lets me know that you're interested, and I'll be releasing dates on what is available. Certainly, you can contact me directly either by email at andrea@drandreawhelan.com. And remember that it's W-I-E, not E-I. It looks like Weiland, but said Wheeland. Or you can certainly give me ring on 833-273-1444. I can't thank you enough for being here. I look forward to hearing from you and wishing you the best in your confident and consistent performances. Bye for now.